My name is Joelle Mercer. I'm 31 years old and I've been married to my husband for 6 years. Last Thanksgiving, in front of his entire family, his parents, his aunts and uncles, cousins I'd met maybe twice, my mother-in-law stood up from the dinner table and told everyone that I had been lying to them for years. She said I had never actually lost our baby, that I'd faked the miscarriage to get sympathy and keep my husband from leaving me. And for about 4 minutes, the room believed her. People went quiet. Forks went down. My husband looked at me from across the table with an expression I had never seen on his face before. But I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just reached into the pocket of my cardigan, pulled out my phone, and said, "I have something I'd like everyone to see." What happened after that is something his family still hasn't fully recovered from. But before I tell you what was on that phone, let me take you back to how we got there. My husband's family does Thanksgiving big. I mean, genuinely big. 30 people crammed into his parents' house out in Virginia. The kind of house that smells like wood smoke and pine cleaner, with a long table that gets extended every year by adding a card table at the end covered with a mismatched tablecloth. His mother, Dorothea, is the kind of woman who controls a room the way some people control a thermostat. Quietly, constantly, and in a way that makes everyone else either too hot or too cold. She has never been warm to me. Not from the beginning. When my husband first brought me home to meet his family, I was 24 and nervous and trying very hard. I'd made a pie from scratch, pecan, his grandmother's favorite, and Dorothea had looked at it, set it on the counter next to 3 other pies, and said, "How thoughtful. We usually do sweet potato in this family, but that's okay." It wasn't a big thing. But it was the first of many small things that, over 6 years, stacked up into something I could no longer pretend was just her personality. She made comments about my job. She made comments about our apartment before we bought the house. She told my husband once, in front of me, that she hoped he was happy, meaning she wasn't sure he should be. When I got pregnant, 2 years into our marriage, she was the last person I told. And even then, I only told her because my husband insisted. She said the right words. "Congratulations. So exciting. We're thrilled." But her eyes did something different. We lost the pregnancy at 14 weeks. It was a Tuesday morning in February, and my world went completely quiet in a way that took a long time to come back from. My husband was devastated. His family sent flowers. Dorothea called once. We moved forward the way you do. Slowly, quietly, and not always together. My husband and I had some hard months after that. We went to counseling. We figured things out. We came back to each other, and I think we came back stronger. But somewhere in the middle of all that grief and distance, Dorothea had apparently decided something about me. And Thanksgiving was when she decided to say it out loud. The day started fine. It always starts fine with her family. There's football on in the other room, and someone's always in the kitchen, and the cousins are loud in a way that fills up the space and makes everything feel warm and uncomplicated. I'd been helping my sister-in-law with the green beans when Dorothea came and stood in the doorway of the kitchen and looked at me in that particular way of hers, steady, measuring, like she was doing math. I asked if she needed something. She smiled and said no, she was just thinking. I should have known then. Dinner was loud and good, and the table was too full, and everyone was passing dishes over each other, and someone knocked over a glass of water and laughed about it. My husband was sitting at the other end of the table from me, sandwiched between his uncle and his younger cousin, and I could hear him laughing from where I sat. I remember thinking, this is fine. This is actually fine. We're okay. And then Dorothea set down her fork. When Dorothea sets down her fork mid-meal, people notice. It's not a gesture she makes often. The table didn't go silent immediately, but it quieted in ripples, the way a stone hits water. The people closest to her first, then spreading outward, until my husband looked up from his end of the table with a slightly confused expression. "I want to say something," she said. Her voice was calm. That was the thing about Dorothea. She never shouted. She never made a scene in the way that would make her look bad. She delivered things like a verdict. I've been holding this in for a long time, and I think this family deserves honesty. My stomach dropped. My husband said her name, just her name, as a question. But she didn't look at him. She looked at me. "I've been doing some thinking," she said, "about what happened 2 years ago. With the pregnancy." She paused just long enough to make sure everyone at the table was paying attention. "And I don't believe it happened the way Joelle said it did." The air at the table changed. Someone's cousin said, "Mom," but got cut off. Dorothea kept going. She said that she had spoken with someone, a friend of hers who was a nurse, who told her that the symptoms I had described to the family didn't match a miscarriage at 14 weeks. She said that she had been patient, and she had been kind, and she had been willing to give me the benefit of the doubt, but that she owed it to her son to say what she actually believed, which was that I had invented the pregnancy, or at minimum the loss, to hold on to her son when she felt him pulling away. There was a moment. "I need you to understand this." There was a moment where I looked at my husband and he was looking at me, and his face was not angry yet. It was just shocked, and it was open in a way that scared me, because I could see the question forming there. The tiny, horrible, involuntary question that he would have hated himself for having. And I hated Dorothea for putting it there. I felt the room tilt. One of his aunts was looking at me with her lips pressed tight together. 2 cousins had gone quiet. My sister-in-law beside me had put down her fork too, and I couldn't read her face. Dorothea folded her hands on the table and said she wasn't trying to cause pain. She said she just loved her son too much to stay silent. I took one breath, and then I smiled. She saw it. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She wasn't expecting that. I think she expected me to cry, or go pale, or get up from the table. She was prepared for a defense. She was not prepared for calm. "I'm glad you said that," I said. My husband said my name, soft and worried. I looked at him and shook my head slightly. "Not now, just wait." And he knew me well enough to hold still. I looked back at Dorothea, because I've actually been waiting a long time to have this conversation. She blinked. That threw her, I could tell. She recovered quickly, she always did, and said that she hoped I wasn't going to make a scene. "No scene," I said. "I just have something I'd like to share with everyone." I reached into my cardigan pocket and held up my phone. "If that's all right." Dorothea glanced at the phone and then back at me, and I saw the first flicker of something cautious in her expression. "Joelle, this isn't necessary." "I think it is," I said. "Not unkindly. You've made a claim in front of 30 people. I'd just like to respond to it properly." My husband's uncle made a low sound that wasn't quite a laugh. Someone shifted in their chair. Dorothea looked at the phone again. I could see her trying to calculate what I might have on it, and I could see that she couldn't figure it out. That was the first time all evening I felt something loosen in my chest. "I'll start here," I said, and I turned to the phone so the table could see it. It wasn't a big screen. Most people at the far end couldn't read it, so I said I'd read it out loud. It was a text message, sent from Dorothea's number to my husband, 4 weeks after we lost the baby. I read it out slowly, word by word. In it, Dorothea had written that she had gone with my husband to the hospital during the worst of it, that she had sat in the waiting room while the doctor spoke to us, that she had held him while he cried in the parking lot afterward, that she had never seen her son that broken, and that she was grateful I was there for him. She had written that she was glad he had me. The table was very, very quiet. I looked up. Dorothea's expression had changed. She knew what that text was. "You were there," I said softly. "You were in that hospital. You saw the discharge paperwork. You sat in the waiting room and your son cried in front of you in the parking lot. That's in your own words, sent to him directly 6 weeks before you apparently started believing I made the whole thing up." My husband's jaw was tight. He was reading something on his own phone, and I knew he had pulled up the same text, the same thread, because we shared each other's message backups on the family plan. "That's not," Dorothea started. "I have the hospital records too," I said. Not loudly, just clearly. "I have the discharge summary, the follow-up appointment notes, and a letter from my OB that I've actually been carrying in my bag for about 3 weeks, because I had a feeling we were building towards something." I reached down to the canvas bag hanging on my chair and pulled out a folded envelope. "I made copies. I'm happy to pass them around." No one said anything. I set the envelope on the table. My sister-in-law reached out and picked it up slowly, like it might be fragile. She opened it, she read for a moment, and then she looked at Dorothea. "Mom," she said. Her voice was different from how it had been all day. Quieter, careful. "This has her name on it, and the date." And she stopped. My father-in-law, who had not said a single word since Dorothea started talking, pushed back from the table slightly and looked at his wife. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. In 30-some years of marriage, they had developed a language, and what he said with that small movement was enough to make Dorothea look away from him. She tried again. She said that medical records could be altered, that she wasn't saying I was lying now, just that she had had concerns, that she had only been trying to protect her family. "Protect them from what?" my husband said. His voice came from down the table, steady and quiet in a way that I knew meant he was working hard to keep it that way. "From me being happy? From a marriage that, for the record, is actually good? What were you protecting them from exactly?" Dorothea opened her mouth. "Because I was there," he said. "I was in that hospital. I held Joelle's hand through that entire appointment, and then I sat in the parking lot and I fell apart, and you were there for that, and you know that, so I'm trying to understand what you thought was going to happen tonight." There was a long, bruised silence. His aunt reached over and took the envelope from my sister-in-law. She looked at it, then passed it to the person beside her. It went around the table quietly, hand to hand, the way things pass at holiday meals, except the complete opposite of that. Dorothea said she was sorry. It came out small and strange, like a word she didn't know how to fit in her mouth. She said she had only wanted to protect him. She said she'd had doubts, and she hadn't dealt with him well, and she was sorry. I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about the pecan pie. I thought about 6 years of small comments with sharp edges. I thought about a Tuesday morning in February that I would carry with me for the rest of my life, and the fact that she had been in that hospital and had still chosen to stand up at Thanksgiving dinner and do this. I didn't say any of those things. I just nodded. What happened after that is hard to describe in a clean way, because Thanksgiving dinners don't end like movies. There's no music, no tidy resolution, no moment where everything is clearly okay. His uncle said something about the sweet potatoes getting cold, and someone laughed, and the tension cracked just enough for people to pick up forks again. But the energy in the room was different. Dorothea ate the rest of her meal without speaking. The cousins talked a little too loudly to fill the space. My husband moved to the chair beside me before dessert, which had never happened before in 6 years of these dinners, and he just quietly put his hand over mine on the table and left it there. We stayed later than we usually did. I'm not sure why. Neither of us said much on the drive home. That night, after we'd gotten into bed and the house was quiet, my husband said he was sorry it had happened like that. He said he was sorry it had happened like that. He said he was sorry it had ever been something I felt I needed to prepare for. I told him the truth, which was that I didn't know how I felt yet. I was tired. I was still a little shaky in a way I hadn't let myself show at the table. He said he understood, and he turned the lamp off, and we lay there in the dark for a while. In the weeks after that Thanksgiving, a few of his family members reached out to me directly. His sister texted to say she was glad the records were there and that she believed me and was sorry for how the evening went. His father called my husband, not me, but from what my husband said, it was not a comfortable conversation for Dorothea afterward. She did not call me. She sent a card, a generic kind, the kind you'd send after a bereavement, with a short note inside that said she hoped I could forgive her and that she had let her fears get the better of her judgment. I kept the card. I'm not sure yet what to do with it. I'm not going to pretend that everything is resolved. It isn't. There are things that, once said, live in a room permanently even after everyone goes home. I don't know what the next Thanksgiving looks like, or the one after that. I know that my husband and I talked more in the 2 weeks after that dinner than we had in months, and that some of what we said was hard, and that we are still here, still choosing each other, which is the part that matters most. What I know is this: I walked into that dinner with the truth in my pocket, and I walked out with it still there, and Dorothea had to watch everyone at her own table read it with their own eyes. She had spent years making me feel like I didn't quite belong in that family, And on that particular Thursday in November, in front of everyone she loved, the truth that I had belonged there all along, that I had grieved there, and healed there, and stayed there, was impossible to look away from. I cut myself a second slice of the pecan pie I'd brought. It tasted exactly how I'd hoped.